All right, so lately we've been focusing a lot on concepts, and today we're going to kind of switch gears and we're going to jump into monogame and apply all of those concepts that we've been talking about. So variables, methods, classes, objects, all of those things are going to come into play in this lesson today. So our goal by the end of today is to create a mood light for space use. Essentially, you will run this code and it will, on a light panel on the wall, project to be a specific color. So you can choose the color that you want it to be. It'll basically add some spice into the lives of some astronauts who are up in space. Looking mostly at white walls, this mood light will provide them with something a little bit different. So we're going to start and we're going to open up Visual Studio, which I've already done. I'm going to do it one more time. So if you start Visual Studio, then from here you want to start a new project. So we're going to start a new project here. Then remember, if you can't find the templates, just type in monogame up here and they should appear. Click on monogame Windows project. And then down at the bottom, I'd like you to call this Unit 3, Lesson 3, Moodlight, because we are in Unit 3. This is the third lesson, and we are creating a Moodlight. Now, I've already created one, so I'm going to call mine Moodlight 1, but you should leave yours to be Moodlight. So I press OK. I come to this screen. Remember, if I click on game.cs, it'll make my code appear. And then remember from the other day, we talked about how you can scoop up those comments. So I'm going to do those to start, scoop up all those summary sections. They're great for understanding what those areas of the program are for, but they are a little distracting to me as a learner. So if I go in here, the first thing I'm going to do, because I'm an experimental person and I want to know what happens when I press start, is I press start. You should press start on yours too. And what you should see is that a screen pops up and it's blue. Now, I didn't really expect anything to happen because I haven't coded anything yet, but there must be something going on inside of monogame that's allowing that screen to be blue. So I can press stop up here in the main line to stop the game, or I can press the X, doesn't matter. So I stop the game and then I start exploring a little bit and I start going down. What I noticed down here in the draw section is that inside of draw, there's a chunk of code that's already written. And it says here I can add my own code in here. That's awesome. I'm going to add some in later. But if I look above that, I see this line that says graphicsdevice.clear. And then inside of it, it says color.cornflowerblue. So now that we've studied classes and methods a little bit, we can break this down. So graphicsdevice.clear is telling me that I'm going to the graphics device class. The dot tells me from that class, I'm calling on the method clear. So because the screen is blue, I'm interpreting that as it clears the screen to a color. And inside of here, I see a color object called color.cornflowerblue. And this is a built-in color to monogame. So this is using those things we talked about in the past. We've got a class, we've got a method within the class, and it's got an object parameter inside of it. So now, because I like to experiment, I'm going to try and change this color, and you should too. If you do color dot, you're going to get lots of different options. I am going to pick a pink color because that's my favorite color. And then from here, if I press start, what I notice is that it changes the background color. So I know that that was the cause of my blue screen. I can now see I've changed it to pink. So I can now understand how that draw method works. And what we're going to do from here is we're actually going to start creating our own color object. So it's great that we can use those pre-programmed colors. You can change it to whatever you want. But we also want to know how to create our own color object. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a color object called background color. And this only needs to be accessed by draw because it's being drawn inside of draw. So we're going to use it as a local object, and we're just going to declare it inside of draw. And then from there, we'll use it and alter it and etc. So we also need to initialize its parameters. And what you'll notice is that when we create our color object, it contains 3 parameters, and it has red, green, and blue in that order. So you're specifying the red intensity, you're specifying the green intensity, and you're also specifying the blue intensity. So you're specifying exactly those red, green, blue color combinations, and you have to go in that order. You can't do green, blue, red. You can't do blue, red, green. It has to be the red intensity, comma, the green intensity, comma, the blue intensity as its parameters. So what we're going to do from here, it says we're going to create our own color object. And what you'll notice in this code, and we're going to add this in a second, is this code right here declares the color object on one line and initializes it on the other. And remember that we can instead do what's called instantiation, and we can do this all in one line. So you can declare it and then initialize it in one line, but what you can also do is you can do what's called instantiate it in another. So we're going to add in a color object. We're going to call it background color. That's what we are creating. And that's going to equal a new color. And then we're going to enter the parameters for red, green, and blue. So if I go into my code, here I'm going to add in a color object and I'm going to call it background color. It's creating a new color. And then I need to specify my parameters. And just to start, I'm going to start at 0, 0, 0. See what happens when red, green, and blue are all set to 0. Now from here, I need to change what's being cleared to the screen, because even if I add this code in right here, this just creates the color object. It doesn't necessarily use it. I want my screen to clear to that color. So I need to go down to the clear method where I'm using that clear method from the graphics device class. And I'm going to change this color object here to be my color object that I just created. So I can put any color object inside of that clear method. The clear method takes in a color object. So I have background color, that is a color object that I am putting inside of clear. And now if I press start, what will happen is the game will run and it will display black. So now we know that 0, 0, 0 for red, green, and blue represents black. And then I can do some experimenting from here. I can say, well, what happens when I change color to red to 100? It starts to look a little red. What happens if I leave that there and I change the green component to be 200? Kind of looks a little more green. It's being a little dominated. What happens when they're equal? Got a little more of a yellow tinge to it. And then what happens when they are blue? Oh, we can't have two that high. What happens when blue is set to, we'll do 30. Doesn't really change it, but what happens if we change that blue to be something a little bit higher? What happens if we change that blue to be 200? So they're all set to 200. What happens then? It's kind of like a gray color. Interesting. So what I would like you to do is I'd like you to spend the next few minutes to experiment a little bit. See if you can create the different colors. Now, something to keep in mind is that the 3 parameters, that those red, green, blue values, those are actually what are called bytes. So they only take in values between 0 and 255. Anything bigger won't do what you're expecting it to do. So 0 to 255 for any of those red, green, blue values. And I'd like you to create these colors at the bottom and maybe experiment a little bit further. So take a few minutes, experiment a little bit further, and then you can watch the next video.